Hello guys and welcome back to Behind the Dugouts. This is it, isn't it? The last group game in the Club World Cup, and in classic Chelsea style, we've not made it easier for ourselves. We've left it down to the last game to decide whether we're going to go through or not. Typical Chelsea. In this match review, we're going to take a look at our opponents, Esperance, go over Maresca's comments that he made in the press conference yesterday, give you the potential starting 11 as well as my score predictions right at the end. So let's get into it. Talk a little bit about Esperance. They've had a mixed bag in the Club World Cup, to be honest. Doing pretty well against LAFC in the previous match, winning 1-0. Had a tough time against Flamengo, but again, they did pretty well for the most part of the game. I think it was in like the last 15 minutes or so that Flamengo capitalised on their 1-0 lead already to increase it by 2 and ultimately winning that game 2-0. But, ES Tunis, they did well in that game. They weren't overly dominated. They had some good moments themselves. So they're not a team that we should take lightly. They use their wide players quite often. Now, one thing I do have to mention, which is a plus for Chelsea, is they are going to be without one of their better, if not their best player in Vallely. Obviously picked up too many yellow cards in this tournament so far. It's a bit of an odd rule that they have and how many they can accumulate. It's been such a short but long-ish tournament, but he has obviously picked up one against LAFC and is now suspended for this game. So it does sort of put a dent in their attack already, which from a Chelsea point of view, that's obviously a positive. Now, apart from watching the sort of highlights and the previous two games they played, I can't say that I know too much about ES Tunis. Clearly very dominant in their domestic league, pretty much winning it every season. So they're a well-equipped winning team. They're not a team that's not used to winning or haven't won trophies before. So they have that winning mentality, which in these sort of tournaments is very beneficial for any team to have. Just gives you that extra edge over some other teams that may have not been used to winning. Apart from that, there's not much of a sample size that I have to form a definite opinion of them. I've noticed that, as I mentioned, they use their wide players quite often, more of a counter-attacking team, so I expect them to sort of sit on a lower block. Again, a bane of Chelsea's existence is playing against a low block we really struggle with, but fingers crossed it ain't going to happen tomorrow. So they will try and hit us on the counter on the break when they can. It'll be up to Chelsea really to limit their chances in this area. I have to be honest though, I'm not taking ES Tunis lightly at all, but Chelsea should have more than enough quality in individual performances as well as a team collective to beat ES Tunis. I don't want to put them down because they are a good side within their own right, but in terms of the gap in quality, there should be, with the amount of money spent, the type of players that we have, the quality should shine. But there are some mitigating circumstances. One in particular, which it is hard for people to hear, hard to understand, about the heat. In the last game, I think it was around 34 degrees, and it was mentioned it's quite hot for the players. I know there was a rumour or a picture floating around of a Bishop Dortmund subs were sitting inside their dressing room, chilling in the aircon while their mates were out on the pitch trying to win them the game. So, and from my understanding that tomorrow's game is going to be even hotter, around 38 to 39 degrees. So this is going to play a factor into it, whether you like it or not, whether you want to use it. You think the manager's using it as an excuse. He has mentioned in his press conference today that the training that they're doing is very light and they're not doing extensive training because they can't. They're training with sprinklers and fans on to keep the players as cool as possible, to keep them with as much energy as possible to save them for the game, because the heat will zap and drain the energy of players. And we noticed that against Flamengo. Players were looking tired within the first sort of 25-30 minutes, and I think this game is going to be even worse if the heat is going to increase for what they've played in previously. I have to caveat this. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, both teams are going to be playing on this pitch at the same time. Both sets of players are going to be subject to the same heat. Now, yes, you can argue that Tunis will be more acclimatized to it because they're a North African team. They're probably gets to around that heat, if not hotter. So they probably have a few players there that are acclimatized to this type of heat. Where you look at, Chelsea's lineup, they're probably, most of them are probably not used to this type of heat. So I don't want to use the heat as an excuse of why some of the performances might not be where we expect it. It is going to be a factor. It's also going to be a factor in how Maresca picks his starting 11. He did mention yesterday that he is going to look to rotate the squad, and players that have not played many minutes could, look to be starting these games. One player in particular I hope will be starting, but we'll get on to more on that later. So it clearly has been tough for Maresca and the players themselves. One thing he also mentioned was some players had been missing from training, either ill or not fully 100%. I think he mentioned Reece James might have been one of them. So there are going to be a few additional factors that are going to affect how the squad is picked. I'm personally thinking that though we sort of started the tournament with the first 2 games picking as strong a side as possible, regardless of the little experiment that he tried to do with Reece James, I think this lineup, which we're going to go through in a second, is going to be a little bit different, and we might see some surprising names in there, with the idea to sort of trying to keep the players as fresh as possible and not sort of trying to get them to burn out, give some players some deserved rest that maybe have not had a minute's rest at all, as well as it's going to be tough for us to embed some players that have not had any minutes and try and throw them into the round 16, in the quarters and semis. Obviously, we have to make sure that we get there first, but you get what I mean, that it's going to be more difficult when you get into those knockout stages and you try and embed those players in. You're better off trying to put them in the group, which is why I'm quite surprised that he didn't sort of put a few other names in to build them up a little bit before getting to that stage of the competition, just to get them some minutes to see what they're about, to decide whether we can use them in the knockout sort of stages of the cup. Now, with that all in mind, let's take a look at the starting 11 that I think Maresca will go with and what players I think he's going to rotate out. Right off the bat, starting with Robert Sanchez. He is going to start this game. I don't see Mike Penders getting a chance here. It's still an important fixture. We still need to win it. Robert Sanchez being, I can't believe I'm saying this, the best goalkeeper out of the 3 that we have. It is the reality. We don't really know too much about Mike Penders, so I can't really comment on him. But out of Jorgensen and himself, he is the better goalkeeper. Hopefully he doesn't, revert back to type and do what he did in the first sort of 20 minutes of the Flamengo game and decide to give Christmas a little early and give out presents to the other team whenever he can. Moving into the back line, I think this is where Maresca is going to make quite a few changes. The only player that I think is sort of destined to always start until they decide to give him some defensive cover is Cucurella. I think he will start at left back. I think Reece James will come out, and I have a feeling, I was thinking about Malagusto, but I don't think he's obviously didn't have a very good season, hasn't played well in the 2 games that he's featured in. I think Maresca's going to go with Josh Achampong in this game, and I wouldn't mind it. I do like Josh. I think he's a great quality player, and this is probably going to be the last game really in this competition that we are going to be able to use Josh, and I think Maresca is going to give Reece a rest. As I mentioned previously in the video, I don't think Reece trained. I think he was either under the weather or not 100%, so I don't think Maresca is going to risk him to start. He might come on later in the game to feature, but I think if they can get away with not using him completely, I think they will. The back 2, I think Maresca is going to go with Tosun, who was unlucky to miss out in the Flamengo game. He did well in the first game and had a good end to the season. And I think he's going to go with Badiashile. Again, another player we've not seen the whole tournament, but I think he's going to want to give Levi Colwill some rest because he's played again pretty much every game last season. He's played both games in this tournament so far, and Badiashile hasn't really got a minute. So I think he is going to go with this back line to give a few of those players a bit of rest. And I think with Badiashile and Tosun, you do get that height, and Tosun is pretty good aerially where we struggle, and I think Tunis' front man is about 6'7", so we're going to need a bit of aerial confidence. So these two may work well together. I'm always worried when Badiashile comes in. He has moments where he looks quality, and then he has moments looking like you shouldn't be a footballer, mate. But this is the sort of back four that I think you go with. Moving into the midfield pivot, this is a tough one because both Enzo and Caicedo have played a lot of football. Now, Caicedo has played more of the football out of the two, I would say, but I feel they're still going to need a bit of stability in there. And the player that I think he's going to bring in is going to be Andres Santos. I think Andres Santos is going to start this game. And from the rumours that are going around, is Maresca sees Andres Santos to be the direct replacement for Enzo, not Caicedo. So with this in mind, I feel to keep that stability, he will go with Caicedo, but I think he will play alongside Andres Santos, and then we'll see likes of Enzo and Lavia coming on in the second half to give Caicedo that rest. But again, he wants to rotate, that's great, but he's still going to want to win this game, and he can't take out everybody. He's still going to need to keep majority of the spine, that team that's got us top four, that gives us that stability in the midfield and that cover. So I think Caicedo will retain his spot, but Enzo will have the first half out, with Andres Santos starting this game. Again, he mentioned about players not having minutes, and he's going to rotate, and I feel like this is one player that the fans have been crying to see and don't quite understand why he hasn't got a minute. And I think Maresca's going to play him from the start and give Andres Santos the minutes that he thoroughly deserves. And I'm, for one, and really excited to see Andres Santos play. So let me know what you think about that one. Moving to the three just in front of the pivot, I think this is going to be an unchanged three. Main reason being, we haven't got any left wingers apart from Tyreek George. I don't think to throw Tyreek George in this kind of match, in this kind of heat, with this kind of pressure, so to speak, it's the right decision for him. So I think he's going to go with Noni back on the left, Palmer through the middle, and Neto on the right. And again, Neto has been outstanding so far in this tournament. He should be one of the first names on the sheet, and I'm expecting him to be an important player in this game tomorrow. And he, I feel at the moment, is giving us the most threat going forward, and he works hard defensively as well. I can't fault his defensive work rate. So he is going to be an important player, and I think this is also going to be a moment for Palmer to step up, because he's been poor for a long period of time. He's shown glimpses of what he can do again, but he's just not shown any consistency to maintain that level. This is going to be, again, not to be disrespectful to the opposition, but it's going to be an opportunity for Palmer to prove himself again, just to get back into his stride and get him sort of confident again in his football. So this is going to be very important for him. And then the same with Noni. Noni didn't have a very good first game. He had a little spell in the second game. So again, he's got a point to prove to rectify the poor performance he had. Again, another player that's very, very inconsistent with his performances. He'll have a few good games and then he'll drop off for like 6 or 7 games and come back. So it is important for these front three to get a bit more cohesion, and now for all of them to be firing all cylinders, because we're going to need them going into the latter stages of the competition, as long as we get there. So these players are going to be important to start picking up a little bit of form. And just in front of them is going to be Liam Delap. Again, I would have chosen Liam Delap regardless if Jackson was available, but he's not, so it's a very easy decision for Maresca. Stick him up top, give him some more minutes. I feel a goal is coming, and I hope it's going to be this game. I feel like Liam Delap needs to break the duck, because the longer it goes on, the more it's going to play in his mind. So I think the game against Tunis is going to be a good opportunity for him to just break that duck, get on the score sheet, and I think after that we'll start to see him score more consistently, and you'll see a more confident Liam Delap sort of straight off the bat. As soon as that first goal goes in, I'm 100% sure on that. Now, Maresca did have a brief mention of Christopher Nkunku in his press conference. Again, it's talking mainly about the links to Man United, but he did obviously mention that Nkunku over the last 5 days has been doing really, really well in training. And when managers tend to say that, it's almost an indication that they potentially could put these players in. There could be an option for Nkunku to play for Palmer and give Palmer a rest. Now, I don't want to see this. I don't think Nkunku should be playing, let alone even in the squad, because he is going to be going. But when managers do come out with these comments, it's almost like, I'm telling you, this is potentially going to happen, so just be prepared for it. And I know pretty much every Chelsea fan is on the same page. He's a very good player technically. He's just not built for this system. He's never reached the heights expected from him at Chelsea, and now he just looks disinterested and he doesn't want to be here. So I don't want to see him on the pitch. I want players that are going to play for the badge. But I would put that in, the back of your mind, that potentially it's something that Maresca could do, as he was alluding to it a little bit in the press conference. What do you think of that lineup, guys? Let me know if there's anyone in there that you don't agree with, someone that you think should be in there instead. This is just my opinion of what I think Maresca might do based on his comments, and based on players that haven't seen a minute yet. This is probably going to be their last opportunity to actually get on the pitch. Let me know what you think. Just drop a comment below. But look, a draw is sort of all we need to get through. We have a slightly better goal difference than Tunis, but I'd like to finish this off on a win. I want to go out and win this game. Not coming for a draw. So with that in mind, I'm going to say that Chelsea, it's going to be tough. I think this is going to be quite a closer game than expected. I think this is going to be a 2-1 victory to Chelsea. I think our quality and our individual performances are going to shine through and play an important role in this fixture, and I don't think Tunis are going to be able to cope with the players. Now, there will be a match review out when I give you my thoughts on the game, but for now, that's all from me, and I will catch you guys in the next one.